Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Cheryl Hale, and she's here to share with us her new book, Girl Be Brave, 100 Days to Chart Your Course. So how could a forgotten note in a Bible change lives? Cheryl's here to share with us how this all came into being. She's a writer, blogger, business owner who founded Girl Be Brave online community. She started Girl Be Brave after reading a note that her grandmother Frances left her mother in a Bible, which ended with the phrase, Girl Be Brave. Cheryl's hope is that Frances's words reach every girl and woman who need a reminder of their own bravery. So let's welcome to the show, Cheryl Hale.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here. And my goodness, I absolutely love this book. I have not been able to put it down since I got it. I'm carrying it around with me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My heart is in those pages, so that means a lot.
Well, and I love the story behind this book. So why don't you share with us how this even became something that you became aware of and a path that you're even on?
Certainly. My grandmother grew up in rural Alabama during the Depression. She dropped out of school, married young, had 5 children, 4 rowdy boys, and my mom, the tag along. Well, my granddad left my grandmother back in the 1950s, back when women had no support. There was no social structure to support single mothers. So my mom was raised by a single mom in a time where they just really struggled to make ends meet. My mom would tell me there were times they had to choose between coal and food. So fast forward to 2016, and my mom is battling breast cancer. My grandmother had been gone more than 20 years at this point, and we're in the kitchen around Christmas time, and I said, "Hey, Mom, let's break out my grandmother's Bible." Well, on the back was a heart-wrenching letter written to her estranged husband and all of her children, encouraging them and admonishing them to be good people, lead decent lives. Well, the very last line of the letter said, "Girl, be brave." And I looked at my mom, and here's her mom speaking to her 50, 60 years ago, telling her at this very moment when she is battling cancer to be brave. And I looked at her and I said, I know we're going to do something with this. I knew those words needed to be out there in the world for other people and not just inside our family.
Well, and how important is that? And it's a timeless story because when we look, especially when we look at the era of the Great Depression, I mean, choosing between food and keeping heat, that's a big deal. And being able to go, gosh, what are we going to do? And I think a lot of people today maybe feel that kind of struggle as well.
I agree. My mom would tell me most of the time they chose to stay warm. But people do struggle. I think that's the common thing that connects us all. And that's what makes those words, Girl Be Brave, so profound, is that need for bravery to be able to face hard things is something we all share.
Without a doubt. I mean, what timeless words. And I love how you've really built really kind of this, I don't want to say empire, but really this, empowering brand where women can connect, people can connect and really feel like they're being empowered daily.
Yes, I'd like to consider it a community, a movement, a group of women, and some men. We have joined together to encourage one another, to let each other know, hey, you're not alone. We're all going through things. You're not alone here.
So let's talk about the book, Girl Be Brave, 100 Days to Chart Your Course. So how did you decide what went in this book and in the order that it's in?
Well, the order is not so much structured in an order as it is everything that is in here, everything that is written is something I've dealt with in my own life, my own personal journey, things I've had to go through, obstacles I've faced, and how I've overcome those things or dealt with them. So I'm just like the readers, we're the same. One of my favorite passages is letting go of regret. That's one of the things I've struggled with. I've had to learn how to let go of regret. And so I put out daily motivational content, and I felt like the book would expand on that. It would take out the little nuggets that I try to put out on mostly a daily basis and give more content and context to that to offer more encouragement and more solidarity with the readers.
So let's talk about some of the topics that you have listed in the book. A few of them kind of surprised me, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that these are here. Because when I looked at it, I was like, okay, you don't really see topics a lot of time that talk about, not always nice. I don't know about you. It's just like, they're just down to earth, common things that we all deal with, you know?
I agree. And those are things that I wish we would talk more about. It's so important to be nice, but nice isn't people pleasing. Nice comes from love, it comes from connection. Whereas people pleasing, which can masquerade as nice, trust me, no, do that, have struggled with that, comes from fear. And so it's very important to be able to tell the difference between the two. Am I being nice here or am I being afraid and dimming my light in the order of people pleasing, really?
Well, and to dovetail with that, you have one section that says learning to say no, and how many of us are always saying yes, even though in the back of our mind we're going, I really don't need another thing on my to-do list.
Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes in the back of my mind is screaming at me, no, don't do it. You can't do it. You can't. So it's so important to be able to say no and to not feel guilty about that and not really even have to offer an explanation. Just let our no be no. It's okay to say no. We should feel empowered by that. It's a boundary around our time, our mental health, our emotional health. So it's very important to be able to say no. And that's not easy for me, especially when my children were younger. I would try to take part in every activity, the room mom, the this, the this, the this. And it came to a point, it's like, I can't do that. I can't do anymore. This is somebody else needs to step up and let them have a time. But I had to say no.
Mama bear, they're doing everything, right?
Right.
Well, and I want to know, gosh, there's so many words to be brave by, words to live by here. Did you really look at your life and go, gosh, these things need to be incorporated? Is that how some of this came into the book?
It is. It is. I just kind of going through my life and thinking about the things I would tell my children. I've been an entrepreneur for many years, and so you have to learn how to self motivate. And so the things I would tell myself when I'm going through difficulty, raising children, working, running a business, all these things, it requires a lot out of a person. And so I tried to take note of the things that I would tell myself and the difficulties that I was facing. Like I said, we all deal with these things, saying no, letting go of regret, self-care, boundaries, all of these issues are very common and it connects us all. So I think it's important to kind of have a discussion about those things, to kind of take it out and say, hey, this is okay. It's okay if I say no to this, and kind of give people that permission maybe to do what they already feel in their heart.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. What are some of the ones that really stand out for you? You've had the book, you've walked the path. What are some of the ones that you look at and you're like, you know what, this really, and I'm sure it's like picking a favorite child, how can you do that? But this really touched my heart. And it's something that really impacts me today.
I would have to, there are so many, but I do especially like Day 47. I have felt my entire life that nobody gets to tell you who you're going to be. I feel like it's very common in our society to put labels on people, to try to put them in a box and say, okay, this is who you are because this is who I can allow you to be. But it's very important that no one gets to tell you who you're going to be. No one has the power to tell you how you're supposed to live your life. But I think as a society, we like to pigeonhole people. And I think even for myself, here I am over 45, starting a new career. People want to pigeonhole by age or race or gender. And I think it's very important to take off those boxes and say, well, I'm not done yet. And I'm not going to live inside that box. I'm going to make something for myself.
On day 72, I love this one because how often, and you talked about a little bit about self-care, but a lot of people have like this belief that it's like, hey, if you're taking care of yourself, you've got vanity issues or you're all about you or whatever. And I love the quote that you have next to it, no one can pour from an empty cup. And how true is that?
I have struggled with this, and maybe it is my generation or the way I was brought up in a religious sense that self care was really in self love. Those were bad things. That was selfishness. And as I've gotten older, I see that it's not selfish. You can't give to others when you're a drained, empty vessel. It's so important. And whatever self care is different for different people. But for me, sometimes it's just quiet. Sometimes it's just being able to sit outside by myself and take a breather. But I was taught, not intentionally, but that self-care and self-love, that meant you were selfish, that you were not putting others first. But you have to put your own care first before you can serve, before you can do anything for anyone.
That's so true. My goodness, that's so true because it's right. You can't pour from an empty cup. There's nothing there. You know?
And so I think women, we do that especially because I think so
Hmm.
many women were natural caregivers. We take on a lot of responsibility for the home, the family, at work, in our communities. And so it's so easy to get drained. But it's very, very important to take that time and refill to energize your spirit, whatever that does, whatever that is for you. But it's so, so important.
So let's say someone, because this is a great stocking stuffer, a gift, especially because we've got the new year coming up, and what a nice time to start working on yourself in a way that can really profoundly affect you. What are some of because I know you've got all these great things on your website that people can also pack with this as stocking stuffers. What are some of the favorites that you have?
Well, one of my favorites would be the bookmark. I'm super, super crazy about that one. And I have what I call on my site a reader bundle that is the bookmark and it combines with our journal. It's a notebook with a little pocket in there. It's lined. It's a pretty little combination. So I think it'd be a great teacher gift as well.
Well, I'm in love with the art. I'm just going to tell you right now. So,
Oh, thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's angels, and it's just they look so beautiful. I'm like, oh, I need to get one of those
Oh,
because
I
it's
love those.
well, and it's nice because we need these things, these reminders. The book, the bookmarks, and other things to surround our space with that kind of remind us, hey, life is going to get better, or you can do better, and it's okay to be your authentic self. And I love having these things to remind us on our journey.
Oh, thank you. I do too. I have posters available and I have them on my wall in my office. Sometimes life gets messy and it's real easy to get caught up in the chaos of it all. And so I too like to have the reminders that, oh, take a breath, everything's going to be okay. Even if it's not, it's still going to be okay. You're still going to be okay. Even if things don't work out and the chaos doesn't calm down, I can calm
Mhm.
down. And
Do
I need that.
Do you find that often when you talk to people, you'll be like, okay, page 50, day 52 is for you. You need to look about grit, or, you're talking to somebody, they're like, well, I don't really feel qualified. And it's like, well, it's day 75. You need to check that out. So,
I mean, and it's so, so common. I'm like, hey, we're all dealing with the same things. And I think in our culture with social media, which I love, it has a lot of good uses, but some bad ones as well. We only see the good parts of people's lives. We only see the fluff. We only see the really polished stuff. And there's nothing wrong with those polished moments. But I think it's so important to go, okay, well, you know what? Today I needed some grit. I needed to be able to
mhm.
pick myself up by my bootstraps and face the day, even though I wasn't necessarily feeling it, or I needed today to commit to self care. So I think those daily reminders are just vital to all of us, whether you get them from Girl Be Brave or anywhere. It's very important to put that kind of encouragement and inspiration and motivation in our heart daily.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they're just like really words to live by, because you also talk about the distractions of things like, phones and devices. And that can be so exhausting. And you really talk about how also it helps, when people are distracted, they become dissatisfied as well with their lives.
Oh, so, so, so true. I think distraction does lead to destruction and dissatisfaction. It's so easy to get caught up in the superficial and in the technology of the superficial. Like I said, I love social media and the internet, but it can be a life sucker if we let it. We can get
Mhm.
sucked into comparison. We can get distracted off the things that really matter. The people in our lives, the relationships we have, the work we're doing, how we're serving our community. And so it's very important sometimes to put the phone away, to put the computer away, and go in there and call a friend or go visit your mom or take your dog for a walk, whatever it is you have in your life, to put down the technology and find some real meaning and purpose in that moment you're truly living.
Yeah, without a doubt. When people go to the Girl Be Brave website, what are some of the things that they can either participate in or also see there?
Well, we have a link to our Instagram feed and quotes. We also have some video blogs up that are available. One of my favorite things we've been able to do is do a Girl Be Brave scholarship fund. They can submit an application for that. This past year, we were able to give away 3 partial scholarships. I was so excited about that. I felt like if Frances's life, it would have been different if she had been educated. And so many women of the time in the area really were not. And that limited her in her ability to provide. So education, I believe, changes lives. And I feel like if we at Girl Be Brave can take a portion of the proceeds and put it towards those causes, towards charity, towards paying for education for women, then we're going to make a difference. Even if it's a small difference, every little bit counts. I want to make a difference. And I think Frances gets to make a difference as well in that.
Oh, I'm sure she's smiling about that.
I bet she's tickled. She would never know it, her face being all over the internet. She doesn't know what the internet is,
but and just, her words being so impactful, generations later. And you look at this and just how it's impacting everybody. They talk about, when we do these ripples of kindness, you never know, how far they go. And educating one woman, really impacts not just that family, but that community as well.
Absolutely. I think we're also connected that way. And I believe just because that one person is there and they're getting an education, they're going to affect everybody they're around, their whole community. Just like you said, it trickles out into other people's lives. I mean, what if that person becomes a school teacher, an engineer, and creates schools and buildings or teaches our children? I mean, for generations, it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. So that's my hope. That's my goal with Girl Be Brave, is to spread that momentum of bravery and empowerment through the generations.
So if we have either stores or churches or, groups of people who would like to see about carrying Girl Be Brave, where could they go? Who do they connect with to do that?
Well, they can contact us through our email. It's info@girlbebrave.com.
That's a good place to start. And then why don't you give the website one more time for our listeners that want to connect with you and learn more about your book and become your community, part of your community?
Sure. I'd love for them to check us out at girlbebrave.com.
Awesome. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Again, if you'd like to connect with Cheryl, you can at girlbebrave.com for more information. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Karen Crowley-Susani, and she's here to share with us her new book, Secrets of Sacred Geometry, Solar Geometry for Health and Life. Now, Karen is a sacred geometry and earth energy expert. She's the founder of the Boulder Center for Master Builders, and she's a co-author of Secrets of Sacred Geometry, which shares how our ancestors used the patterns of the sun and earth to create their sacred structures, and how you can use this knowledge to improve your environment. As a former Air Force pilot, her career took a change after she became a mother and wanted her children to grow up in a healthy environment. Karen became determined to share this ancient wisdom to help heal the toxic energies of our modern world. So let's welcome to the show, Karen Crowley-Susani.
Thank you, Marianne.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about sacred geometry. You know, why don't we start from the beginning? I think a lot of times this gets thrown around as kind of a buzzword, and most people don't even understand what sacred geometry is.
That's true. It can be a very confusing subject, that's for sure.
Well, and for our listeners that are new to the subject, why don't you take a little time to explain what sacred geometry is?
Okay. Sacred geometry, we can break it down into 2 different words. One is sacred and the other is geometry. And sacred, most of the time when we talk about sacred, it's a sacred space, it's a place. And let's see, what happens is it's a meeting or experience of connecting to the divine. So we can think of this like as in, God talking to Moses and him getting the 10 Commandments, or the Virgin of Guadalupe, appearing to people in the fields, things like that. So it's a connection. It's a special place where the divine has met us. And so when this happens, lots of people, they want to mark the place, they want to connect with it, they want to, they want a deeper connection with divinity or the cosmos. And so they decide to, first of all, they mark it. And in the beginning, they marked it with like a stone. The Greeks had a thing called an omphalos, which was in Delphi. It's this round stone that marked their the center of their universe. Like the Druids in Ireland, they had the Stone of Destiny. There's other examples, but the first thing, the most important part is, okay, we're going to mark it. And then what do you do with that? You want to, protect it, have a protective space around it. And then that's where geometry comes in. So the Greeks, they define geometry as measurement of the earth. And so how do you measure the earth?
Yeah, for sure.
So we can think about ancient man. He was really into looking at the skies, the cosmos, and the most important thing in the sky is the sun. So he would watch the patterns of the sun, because the sun moves, north and south with the seasons, and the solstices are called, the sun stands still. So the sun would move, stand still, reverse directions, and go the other direction. And so, after a while you go, okay, it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way. And if you stand in one point and observe this, you can mark it on the earth. You can mark the sunrises, you can mark the sunsets, and depending on where you live and how cloudy it is, it could take a year, or it could take, generations to find the exact location of the sun. And the sun makes a pattern on the earth, and it's a rectangle in some places, it's a square in other places. It changes with how far north or south you are from the equator. And this is the first sacred geometry. It's a pattern of the sun. Does that answer the question?
It does. And I'm glad that you broke that down, because a lot of people, they look at this and they're like, well, I see these stones stacked, or, these things happening. How does this all come into play with sacred geometry? And what's the meaning behind that?
For me and for my tradition in the European master builders, the meaning and it's connecting to the sun and bringing the pattern of the sun to the earth. And what this does is it creates a sacred space. And it's the beginning of sacred geometry, because of course, ancient man, he didn't have all the tools that we have. He would just be watching the sun, watching the solar system. He would be watching the planets and the stars and how they move. And he would be feeling into what's happening. And so when you mark this solar rectangle, different things happen, which are fantastic. It's a mandala. And from there, the mandala, you can feel different elements in the mandala. You can feel the element of the earth. You can feel the element of water, air, fire, ether. And they were aware of these elements, and they started building with them.
There's so much to unpack here when we talk about sacred geometry. So how can using sacred geometry make our lives better? Is there like an energetic aspect to that? I know I'm kind of hitting with two questions here.
Okay. So yes, it can. There are different qualities with sacred geometry. So let's talk about the solar rectangle, or what we call a solstitial quadrilateral. It's a rectangle, and it is connected to the energies of the sun. Like I said, the energies of the solstices. So in each corner is where the sun either rises in the summer solstice sunrise, or the winter solstice sunrise, or the sun sets. So this creates this rectangle. And inside, the energies they're organized. They attract the energy of the sun and the stars and this energy. And what's really cool about it creates a harmonious space. So the energy feels good inside. When you stand in the center, it's when you create something like this on the earth, what the people found is there's a central vortex that wasn't there, and it appears. And this vortex, it's a connection between the heavens and the earth. That if you stand there, you can feel your energy. You can feel the earth. You can feel a deep connection to the earth, and you can also. The energy rises up through your central column, through all your chakras, and goes out the top of your head, and it connects you to the cosmos, or for some people to the divine. So it's a space that's protective, and it's a place that connects you more easily to the divine, which people were looking for when they were creating sacred space. And for us nowadays, this is the beginning pattern of all the temples and churches and all sacred space. But if you put it around your house, if you put this pattern around your house, you're going to have more harmony in your house. You're going to, it lowers stress. It makes you feel good. It connects you to, heaven and earth. And it's a living structure. And it manifests sacred space.
It's interesting because when you look at sacred geometry, it has its own energy, like you're saying. So each symbol, and your book is so well done, my goodness. And it really breaks it down in regard to sacred geometry and the different types that there are. One, if let's say someone's looking to make their own sacred space within their yard, what are some of the things you would suggest?
Well, with our book, it's in the back, we explain all the different ways to draw the different mandalas and break down the different kinds of energies. But with your yard, you can do some fun things. If you have a garden, you can plant different kinds of plants in a kind of a rhythm, because when you have a rhythm of like a different kind of an element, for example, like a earth element or a fire element or ether element, you do this in like 3 or 4 or 5 times, the energy gets stronger, and you could actually feel it. It's kind of cool. One of my favorite elements to use is ether, because it relates to the heart and it helps things grow. So it's fun to figure out what the measurement of ether is for your particular place on Earth, for the latitude, and you can figure that out. We have a simple math formula that's very easy to do, and you figure out, okay, so the measurement is 21 centimeters, and so you line up 3 or 4 plants, and the energy changes. You can do this in a room, and the energy changes, and you can actually feel it. And you can see the plants. The plants, they are happier. It's amazing. They perk up and they grow faster. They're stronger, and it's amazing. You can also make a little. I had some parakeets, and we put the parakeets in the center of a little mini solstitial quadrilaterals. And the birds were kind of frenetic before we put them in there. And afterwards, they really calmed down. It was quite amazing to watch. They were much happier and peaceful, but in a good way. Does that?
It does make sense. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because there are also instruments that can measure the difference of the energy itself. From one area, and when we look at within an area that has sacred geometry, how does this relate to both when we look at the moon and the sun? I know that you talked a little bit about the measurements before, but how does it relate to when we go ahead and we have sacred geometry as consideration for our home and our property? How does that relate with the moon and sun?
Well, you're putting the pattern of the sun around your house. So it brings in the energy of the sun if you put it on your property or around your house, it brings the energy of the sun to you. It's also, the mandala is also connected to loosely to the moon. It's exact in the area of like Stonehenge. The moon is exactly the same as the sun. But you're bringing in the energy of the cosmos to your house, and so you're becoming you're more connected to your environment around you. You're more connected to the earth. You're more connected to. It's just you feel more in the rhythm of the patterns of life, really.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, and so when someone's inside a structure that is using sacred geometry, what happens inside?
Oh, that's a good question.
I got lots of them for you, right? And I know that there's a lot of different things. We talked about the energy and how it makes animals and plants feel better. For human beings, how do humans react to this?
It's a very good question. So we have a big solstitial quadrilateral around our house, and people whenever they come into our house, they remark at how calm the energy is. We don't have, you know how sometimes you walk into a house and it's really frenetic, or the energy kind of, how you feel drained and all that. When you walk into our house, it's a calm energy, but you feel good. I mean, that's very simple, but you feel good. You're relaxed. You feel calm. You're not stressed. It kind of drops away when you walk in the door. That's the best thing I can say about that.
Well, and I appreciate you going into that, because a lot of times people don't understand how important energy is in moving, not just, what we want out of our life, but also what we want in our life. And there are certain things that, just like keeping a positive mindset, using sacred geometry for our space really sets that intention as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to live in a house that was by some huge high tension wires, and there was a power substation that lived next to me, that was very close to me. And the house was just, it was a nervous house. You'd come in and it was not calm. It wasn't inviting. It was stressful living there. Actually, it was part of the reason why I got into this work, was because, this is not good, and how do I fix it? And some things you can't totally fix. I did the best I could with that house, but sometimes it's good to move.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, you can if you can hear the hum of the power lines, it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, what's that vibration doing to me and to my space? And being able to go ahead and just like try to take care of it the best way you can. Maybe not everyone can move. Maybe setting up, a sacred space using sacred geometry would help, at least with that.
Oh, it would definitely help, but it would definitely help. It helps calm the energy, and when you set up a space for your house, it helps push down that frenetic energy. But some places are just more than what you can actually do. So you move. But it took me 20 years.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I get it. I get it. I've lived close to things before where I'm like, gosh, that is really affecting, if it's affecting the wiring in the house, it affects stuff. So what is it doing to my body? So, what are some things that we need to really consider for our sacred space when we start getting that set up?
Well, one thing is that you want, it depends on your space, and some people are very, very sensitive to their spaces, and some people aren't. So you want, well, I personally like to be in a place of high vibration. I'm at a point in my life where I like that. So I try to use all my skills to raise the energy. And in our book, we have different ways to use the geometry to make things that are high vibration, or at least uplifting. So you could, well, the first thing would be to harmonize your house, and you would have to measure your house, and then figure out how to put the solar rectangle around your house. And then you could also do other things. You could do, like I talked about with planting, you could plant plants in a vibration of ether, which would help open your heart and make the plants grow better. You feel better. It's and then you can make fun things. You could. My son, he would line up all the plants. He has plants everywhere, but he would line the plants up in like, oh, let's see what the earth energy feels. And so he would play with the elements with earth. And then sometimes you could play with the elements of, well, how about the first and second chakra? What does that feel like? Or you can play with different elements like, oh, I'm going to invite some friends over. So what kind of vibration or what kind of feeling do I want in the house? Do I want something that has to do with the heart? Do I want to have some sexy time? Do I want to, work with the second chakra and the first chakra? Do I want to have people be able to communicate easier? So you can play with the elements with just plants in your living room and feel and see how you can manipulate the energy just by using simple measurements. It's really fun, actually.
Well, I love how in your book, I mean, you really have different sacred geometry structures that are laid out so people can really use this book as kind of a roadmap for developing their own sacred space and which one may be good to use in their sacred space. They do different things.
Absolutely. And there's also a lot of historical examples too, which are interesting to read about and see how different cultures created their own sacred spaces and what elements were important to them and how they used it.
What are a couple of those that you could share with us so our listeners can kind of get a sense? Because I think a lot of, when we look back at some of into history, how sacred geometry is being used, a lot of that's coming forward today.
Let's see. Okay, so one example is Chichen Itza, which is the Temple of Sun in Mexico. So the Mayans who built the temple, they used a part of what they used was a grid of 6, and the grid of 6 is a magic square of the sun. So it's fascinating that they knew that what grid to use when they were building their Temple of Sun. And then one of the interesting circles. So there's a lot of different circles in our in the sacred geometry mandala, and one of them is called the Circle of Transformation. And this circle is a very interesting one because, and a lot of temples or churches use it. But what it does is when you cross over it, whatever you're thinking in your mind is magnified in the center. So what they did was the Mayans is when they put this circle right at the edge of the stairs. And so when you stepped onto the stairs, whatever you started going up the stairs with in your mind was what you're going to meet in the at the top of the stairs. So you could have a very good experience or you could have a very bad experience. So that's one example of a place that we broke down, and you could see the different circles and the different polygons that were used to build the place. Let's see. Another example would be well, I don't have the book in front of me, but well, another example of something interesting that a lot of the churches would use, and a lot of other people too. They would use we have a bunch of different water circles, and one water circle has to do with it's called the Circle of Protection. And what it does is when you cross it feels like a boundary, and it connects to your thyroid, and it it's not a comfortable, it's kind of uncomfortable. You kind of feel it like there's something going on here. There's something different, maybe a little fear in there. And it would be a circle that you use, that a lot of the churches use. It's a protection because the entities don't like to go over it. Ghosts don't go over water. And thieves don't like it either. They don't like, because they're sensing something in their body, and they have very, spider. They're like Spider-Man. They have a tingly, something's wrong. I'm going to get out of here. And we've actually used that circle on several different a lot of houses to protect them from being robbed. And we had one lady, everybody was robbed in the neighborhood except for her, and she had done her protection with that particular circle. It's pretty amazing. They're very energetic circles. You can feel them in your body, which is one reason why I really like the sacred geometry that we do.
Well, it's really interesting when you go to places, and I've been in places before where you walk in and you get this just really kind of creepy vibe, where it feels like it's hard to breathe and you don't want to be there. It could be a gorgeous place and you're like, I need to get out.
Absolutely. You hit the circle.
Like, not the right one. So when someone has a space that's like that, is that something that can be transformed with sacred geometry, or they're just stuck?
Oh no, definitely that you can transform it. A lot of the geometry, people's houses are not built with good geometry. There's this is a whole big discussion, but we're all let's see if I can break down really quickly. So everything is vibrating. So our walls are vibrating, our houses are vibrating, and it's a slight vibration. And so some of the measurements that are used, because they're not using ones that are in resonance with the solar geometry of the place, can be bad measurements, just because a lot of the measurements can relate to musical notes and emotions. And so sometimes the measurements are off. And so you have a room that the measurements are off, so it creates kind of a bad, a negative ambiance in the house. You can change that with putting a solstitial quadrilateral around the house. You can make a stronger, better rhythm for yourself, which would be fantastic to change that. And there's other things you can do too. We could work with the different elements and emphasize those as well when we harmonize a house.
Really make some changes that way. I mean, how important is that? There's so much information in Secrets of Sacred Geometry. Gosh, I mean, it would take forever for us to go through it. What final thoughts do you want to leave our listeners with?
That is actually, sacred geometry is actually it's a feeling, it's connected to the sun. It has energy, and our bodies are aware of it, whether we are aware of it or not. It's something that is something that we're all aware of, and it's important to have a space that nurtures yourself, nurtures who you are, and nurtures you in stressful times.
I agree with you, because a lot of times, we're out in the busy world, we're doing things, and then when we come home, that's really, or when we come to our spaces or our sacred spaces, these are really places where we find refuge. And
Absolutely.
It needs, and it really needs to be a place where we can uplift our soul and our spirit and our bodies. And it's all done energetically. And a lot of times we look at just, we take care of the foods we eat, we take care of what we're thinking about. We also need to take care of our space. And that's what I got from reading your book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Karen, where can our listeners go to connect with you, learn more about your book, Secrets of Sacred Geometry, and be part of your community? I know you teach workshops. I'm sure there are people who are going, gosh, you know what? I want to dive deeper into this. So where can they go to be part of that?
You could go to our bouldermasterbuilders.com. That's where we have a bunch of information about sacred geometry. We have a certification course that's happening in Asheville and in California. We've got to figure out where to go in California, but in the springtime we have 2 new certification courses coming up, and we also have a fantastic tour that we do in Brittany. We go to a bunch of different sacred places, mostly stone places, and we tune into the energy. We learn how to body dowse and connect to sacred sites and learn some sacred geometry about how things were built, different churches, and it's a fascinating thing. Our book is on tripleenclosure.com, but you can find it on Boulder Master Builders. So just go to bouldermasterbuilders.com. We'd love you to sign up for our newsletter. Lots of things that we talk about. And I only send it out once or twice a month. So we don't do every day like some people.
Yeah, well, it's got great information. I've been following your community. I highly suggest everyone does as well. Karen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, well, thank you, Marianne. I appreciate being here. It's a wonderful opportunity to speak with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Secrets of Sacred Geometry, Solar Geometry for Health and Life. If you'd like to connect with Karen, you can again at bouldermasterbuilders.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.